They say a baby monitor tells you what your child can't. But in my case, it told me something else entirely. Something that was not my daughter. And it whispered to me from inside her crib, while she slept soundly, in a room that was supposed to be locked. If you want more true American horror stories, hit subscribe, because this one will make you unplug every monitor in your house. My name is Evelyn Shaw, and I'm going to tell you what happened to me in the suburban quiet of Mansfield, Ohio in 2015. Back then, my daughter Claire was just 9 months old, bright, cheerful, easy to soothe, always smiling. I used a baby monitor like every new parent. Audio and video, night vision, motion sensors, nothing special. But I learned something that winter, the more technology you bring into your home, the more doors you accidentally open. And some things walk right through. It began with something so small I almost ignored it. A soft humming through the baby monitor speaker. A melody, slow, old-fashioned, almost like something from a dusty record player. I assumed it was interference. Maybe another house using the same frequency. But then I realized something. The humming wasn't distant. It wasn't static. It was close. Close enough to hear breath between the notes. Claire slept peacefully on the screen. No one else was in the room. That night I whispered to myself, "It's just the monitor. Just noise." But the melody stuck in my head, because I had heard it before. It was a lullaby my grandmother used to sing. One she said she learned from her mother back in the early 1950s. Each night, the humming grew clearer. The second night, the voice lowered, like a man with a deep chest. The third night, I could hear words forming between the hums, as though someone was shaping vowels, but not quite human enough to form proper speech. By the fourth night, I couldn't deny it. There was a man singing inside my child's bedroom. But every time I ran to her room, nothing. Just a quiet crib, a sleeping baby, and that old rocking chair gently swaying, as though someone had gotten up just seconds earlier. I tightened the windows, locked the doors, checked the attic. No signs of a break-in. Still, each night, the voice came back. And now it seemed to know I was listening. On the seventh night, the monitor woke me up on its own. A loud static crackle, followed by a sudden shift in the camera image. Not a glitch, not a blur. A shadow leaning over the crib. Tall, thin, unnaturally still. Not the shape of a person. More like a silhouette stretched too long. As if someone had pulled a human figure like taffy. The shadow leaned close to my daughter, its head right above her small chest. The humming was gentle, almost affectionate. I jumped from the bed and ran. When I burst into her room, the air felt colder, like walking into a basement, but the shadow was gone. Claire slept peacefully, one hand open, like she had been holding onto something moments earlier. My eyes drifted to the corner. Nothing. Then to the window, still locked. Then to the crib camera, still recording. But here's what made my stomach twist. On the baby monitor playback, the shadow didn't vanish. Simply stepped backward and faded into the wall. Not disappeared, absorbed. Like the darkness swallowed it. I spent the next morning reviewing the footage frame by frame. At 3:14 a.m., a whisper cut through the audio. "She's mine," when she sleeps. The voice was breathy, dry, too close to the microphone to be captured naturally. The whisper didn't echo in the room. It vibrated through the speaker. I threw the monitor across the room, but that didn't help, because the voice wasn't coming from the device. It was coming from inside the crib. The next morning, I walked into Claire's nursery, thinking maybe this nightmare was finally over. But when I reached the crib, my heart stopped. There were footprints, tiny ones, the size of a toddler's. But Claire couldn't even stand yet. They weren't wet. They weren't muddy from the yard. They were dusty, dust from the attic. The prints started inside the crib, then walked to the window, then up the wall, straight up, in a perfect line. No smudging, no fall marks, like something or someone crawled vertically without gravity. I looked up at the ceiling. There, right above the crib, was a faint, dusty handprint. Small, child-sized, but with long fingers, too long for any child. That's when I realized whatever was visiting my daughter wasn't human, and it wasn't new. This thing had been climbing these walls long before I ever moved in. I decided to stay up all night. No monitors, no cameras, just me outside the nursery door. At around 2:58 a.m., I heard breathing. Not from the room, from behind the door. Slow, heavy, like someone was inches from the wood. Then a voice, "Let me in." I froze. My hand on the doorknob trembled. From inside the room, Claire started giggling. A soft, delighted baby laugh. But underneath her laugh was a deeper one. Almost like a second laugh echoing her joy, but distorted. Like a grown man imitating a baby. I slammed the door open, nothing. Just Claire sitting up in her crib, eyes fixed on the wall, smiling, and nothing I could see. But I swear to you, I felt something move past me. Cold, fast, angry, like a wind rushing out of the room. The air warmed, Claire yawned, and for the first time in a week, the room felt normal. It never returned after that night. Not the voice, not the humming, not the shadow. But from that day on, Claire refused to sleep in that room. Every time I tried, she pointed at the corner and said, "Night man," and she cried until I carried her out. It's been almost 10 years. Claire's older now. She doesn't remember the humming, the shadow, or the footprints. But last month, I found something. I was cleaning out the attic, and buried under old insulation was a box. Inside was a dusty music cylinder, the kind you'd find inside a 1950s music box. When I wound it, it played the same lullaby my grandmother used to hum, the same one from the monitor. But here's what chilled me. On the bottom of the cylinder was a small dusty print, a child's footprint, with long toes. If you ever hear a lullaby through a baby monitor, and you didn't sing it, take your child and leave the room, because something else might be watching them sleep.